everybody. First interview here. It's your host, Shaggi360, Inmate Interviews. We have a very special guest, Nikko Jenkins. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Nikko's story as far as the media portrays it and as far as the state has put it out there. We're going to go ahead and deep dive into the story in Nikko's own words and see what's been going on and touch on stuff that's controversial and that hasn't been put out there. And it has to do with the state's negligence and other factors that we're going to touch on today. So hopefully everyone has an open mind, is willing to see another side of the story that they probably never heard. So, Nikko, I want to thank you for being here today, bro.
Thank you. You're welcome, man.
Definitely. I'm sure everybody's aware, of your story and everything. And just to let everybody know that you're currently on death row. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm currently on death row.
Man, all right. So, I mean, your case, man, I'm a little older than you, but I remember your case vividly, right? I remember watching it, and I remember the way the media portrayed you as like some kind of monster or something like this, that you were just out, for like kicks or thrills or something, is how the media portrayed it. And I just want to ask you, like, do you feel you had a fair shot with the media?
No, I don't feel I had a fair shot with the media due to the racism that's in the state of Nebraska and the Ku Klux Klan members that frequently hold events here in the state. And it's like these people, and I'm charged with killing a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. So and I'm a black man, so I don't think that I was betrayed. I don't think that I got a fair shake just because of the racism in this case and the public, the political aspect behind my case that was pressuring my judge and other county attorneys in my case.
Right. And we're going to touch on that because you were kind enough to send me a whole packet of information, which was basically a special investigatory review from senators from the state of Nebraska. And I basically read over all the documents, and I was shocked to find out a lot of these things that I never knew before. And I try to research your story, and I don't find this stuff. Let's get into the beginning. So, from a young man, you have been dealing with issues, with mental issues. Is that correct?
Yes, I've been struggling with mental illness for over 25 years.
And that's documented. And from the documents that I saw, I mean, this has been from the age of 5. Nikko went to a special clinic that went ahead and assessed him for multiple days, like over 11 days. And this has been documented. I have seen the proof. This is in the state's investigatory report. So, I mean, all this is documented. And I mean, this has been an ongoing thing that the state and everyone knew about.
My mental illness has been in my history since I was an 8-year-old child, man. I was committed to the psychiatric hospital for evaluation, and then basically I was given medication. After I got out of there, I had to go see a psychiatrist for 9 months.
And because you were a child, they couldn't clinically diagnose you. Is that right?
She couldn't clinically diagnose bipolar disorder because there was no scientific evidence to support it in the children. So I was ahead of the times.
Got it.
Basically, my disorder, my mental illness was ahead of the time because the psychiatric community, the doctors wasn't seeing patients suffering with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia at an age of that young. So basically, they changed that now. Now children are diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorders. But back then in 1995, my doctor wasn't ethically permitted to diagnose me as a child, so she couldn't.
Her hands were tied. So basically, she felt you were an extreme case, and she was trying to get that documented and get you help. But her hands were tied legally, like with some bureaucracy, to where she couldn't go ahead and try to further the treatment to the next level.
Yeah, basically, she testified. In court in 2014 July at my conference hearing that off of those same childhood evaluations today, she would be ethically permitted to diagnose me as bipolar disorder. And so she said that off of those same evaluations, she would have diagnosed me as a child with bipolar. She said that on her oath in 2014 at my conference hearing, Dr. James Dudley.
Right, and I mean, that's just that just shows you that, the way the legal system is and everything. Every state has their own definitions of things. They make their own laws, and we're gonna touch on that. But I just want to go over this for people to understand that from a young man, you've been trying to get help. Your family has been trying to help you. You have a mom that loves you, correct, Nico?
Yes, my mother, Lord Jenkins, loves me very much. She's always been supportive of me. This is fun.
Your mom later on in life, before you got released in 2013, even tried to petition for you to get committed before you're released, basically to not have you released on your date and to have you committed beforehand, and that was stopped.
Exactly. That was sabotage. My mother did try to get me civilly committed to the psychiatric hospital before I was released. She filed her own petition in Johnson County Courthouse down in where Nebraska, where Tecumseh Prison is in the state of Nebraska, Johnson County. And then the rogue psychologist, I would like to say, Dr. Mark Weilich, that's his name, Dr. Mark Weilich, he lied to the county attorney when they called up in here to prison in Tecumseh and asked for my mentally ill neighbors. And that's why the Special Investigative Committee of LR 424, they found out and uncovered all the conspiracy that he committed. And the document, the evaluation that he withheld, you have in your possession. It's February 4th, 2013, last evaluation by Dr. Valerie Baker, who's my treating psychiatrist.
And you know what, Nico? I had no idea of Dr. Wheelage. And we're going to get into that because I got a lot to say about Dr. Wheelage. But basically, Dr. Wheelage has a big part to do with this story. And he is basically a doctor that works for the Department of Corrections. And you had a bunch of other clinical doctors, I would say about four, if not more, that basically were saying you need to be committed. And this one doctor that worked for the Department of Corrections sabotaged that, and we can even say conspired, because a conspiracy is when two people or one or more persons conspire to commit an act. So I mean, I don't think this Dr. Willage was just some rogue doctor. And because he worked for the Department of Corrections, I mean, I'm sure someone was pulling the strings telling him to do these things as well. Can we safely kind of say that, something like that?
Yeah, of course. He was getting directed by the directors of the prisons and the directors and the head doctors of the department.
And Nico, a lot of the viewers won't understand that, just like politics, like in the government with the Democrats and Republicans, there's politics in prison system, is there not?
Yeah, there's politics. There's a lot of politics that goes on with this prison system and the higher ranking of this the administration when it comes to the central office.
In the higher administration, they basically go ahead and they meet with lieutenant governors, the governor, people high up in the state that make these decisions, and then they align their thoughts and their actions based on who their friends are higher up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll get into all that because it's real interesting, and we'll get into a bunch of stuff, but basically, from a child, you were having these issues, and your mother and your family try to get you help, and you have been documented. There was also some good doctors that tried to get you help. Not every doctor is bad. Not, I mean, they were definitely trying to get you help as well, but for one reason or another, it just got to the point where they couldn't treat you effectively and correctly. And from a child, you were hearing voices.
Yeah. Since I was a kid, I've been hearing voice commands part of my schizophrenia.
Okay. So as a child, one story that I saw was, you bring in a gun to school and showing it off to your friends when you were a young child, and things like that. So you did have like a few troubles in school and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, but all of those things that I did was done because my voices told me to do it. I
So
remember those times.
so
That time
even
I took the gun, even that was a voice command by person when I was young. They were just voices. I didn't know what they were. But then as I got older, they started revealing themselves as being demons and prophets and ancient serpent gods and stuff.
Right. So even as a child, you were hearing these voices, but naturally, you're a kid. You don't know what these voices are. You don't know who they are. You're just hearing these voices, right? And even at that age, you were hearing voices to tell you to do things.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure the counselors and everyone was aware of this.
Yes.
Then on we go, and you start to mature as a young man. You start to grow up. You're in your town. You also have, some issues with like family and environment and things of that nature. You know what I mean? That obviously could play a part in everything. But from a young age, Nikko was hearing voices, and he was telling people that he is hearing voices. Now, I mean, maybe, if I went to my mom and told her, I saw someone under the bed or heard a voice, she might not believe me, right? I'm a kid. She might not really take me that serious, right?
Yeah.
So is that kind of like, how people around you were like, oh, he's just a kid. He's just hearing stuff. It's his imaginary friend, something like that?
Yeah, basically, for a while, that's how it was until my actions started turning more violent towards my sisters, and being more violent at school and stuff. Like I was beating kids up at school and chasing my sisters around the house with knives and stuff, and just like that behavior started getting real like aggressive.
Right. And that must have been hard, bro. That must have been hard as a kid to go through that and not understand why. Just hear it, and man, as you matured and as you grew up, these voices, and when we say voices, it's not like voices like just some unnamed voice. At the time when you were young, you didn't understand who, but later on in life, at some point, you understood that it was the Egyptian god Apophis, also known as Apep.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And at what age was that?
So the Apophis revealed himself to me at 19.
Okay. When you were in prison for the first time.
Yeah.
For people that don't know an Apophis, can we kind of go over Apophis? I try to do a little research, you know what I mean, just on my own, just so I'd be able to converse with you on it and understand, what this is. Basically,
I was explaining.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Nico.
I explained. Okay, Apophis is the great serpent of the underworld in Egyptian. I don't say the god of Egyptian history. And basically, Apophis is a serpent god of the underworld. And he's the king of evil, basically. So he's been around since the beginning of existence. Since the beginning of existence. And everything that comes out of darkness, it comes out of evil, it comes out of Apophis. And he is the creator of it. He is the creator of all evil.
Right, and from what I read, story goes that Apophis Apep was basically created from the umbilical cord of Ra, and Ra is the sun god. So basically, Apophis is the opposite of the sun god, and every night Ra would go down into basically like kind of a ship through dusk to dawn, I believe, or before it becomes dawn. He has to go through this dark place where him and other gods that are on the ship fight Apophis nightly. But Apophis cannot be killed because then that would go ahead and cause imbalance in the universe because of the balance situation. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Good
so
research.
thank you, bro. I mean, I take this seriously, man. I take your time seriously, and I take your life seriously, bro. And all I want to do is yeah, I just want to get the real story out there for people to understand. I mean, this is some serious stuff, and this is Nico's life we're talking about, and this is not someone that just went out there and off of hype, off of trying to do something did this, and this has been a lifelong issue for Nico, and he's been trying to get help. So I just want to put that out there for everyone. So and Nico, I mean, my first thought when I started doing research, I've read the book of Enoch, right? I've done research on the Bible. And things like that. And I didn't even know who APEP was. So how does a boy from Nebraska learn about APEP? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, mine was a spiritual revealing, and I had did a huge sacrifice on myself, a blood sacrifice, where I carved snippets of war on my face, like I carved these lines through my face and through my eye, and it did 29 stitches the first time, and I wrote a blood message on my wall, and it said Apophis, equals.
man,
And I wrote that on my wall in blood, and I was praying to him, and I was talking to him, and that's what did himself to. It's been there ever since. We kind of do instructed me to tell me as we're worshiping to do the sacrifice, that is the only way to get the power of the gods.